Welcome to FOXSOUL's Black Report. This is the space where we bring you Black America's headline news, views, and opinions. I'm Romeo.
Hey there, I'm Brooke.
I'm Demi.
Hey, loved ones, I'm Nielle.
All right, on today's report, Black Voters Matter co-founder LaTosha Brown and National Coalition of Black Civic Participation President and CEO Melanie Campbell is here to discuss the push for voting rights. And civil rights attorney Sue Ann Robinson will join us to break down the first week of the McMichael and Bryan murder trial, the three men accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery.
We speak with Dre Martin, the founder, executive director of HBC Unite, to discuss how he's providing empowerment and scholarship opportunities for communities of color. And Big Brother Season 23 winner Xavier Prather is here to talk about his historic win and his acting debut.
Soulmates, we have that and so much more. It's our voice and it's our truth. So let's talk about it.
Hey, Soulmates, happy Friday. Good evening. Thank you for joining us as we get ready to send you out on the weekend. President Joe Biden wants patience amid a political stalemate when it comes to getting Democratic proposals on voting rights and police reform through a divided Congress. You'll remember earlier this week, Senate Republicans blocked a voting rights bill for the third time this year. Senate Democrats are still trying to advance legislation in response to state ballot restrictions fueled by Republican former President Donald Trump's false claims of a stolen 2020 presidential election. At a CNN town hall last night, the president appeared ready to end or at least modify the Senate filibuster rule, which is severely hindering the Democratic power in Congress. So host Anderson Cooper asked him whether he would consider an end to the rule, specifically on the issue of voting rights alone. His answer, quote, "and maybe more." This is the president's strongest signal yet that he is ready to move to end the filibuster.
Joining us now to discuss next steps in voting rights in this country as it relates to people of color is Melanie Campbell, President and CEO of the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation, and LaTosha Brown, co-founder of Black Voters Matter. Welcome back to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
It's such an honor to have you here because you guys have been on the forefront of this thing. I know, Ms. Campbell, you were arrested a few months ago with the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. LaTosha, we've had you on the show several times. You took a tour across the South to get people motivated to vote. How are you ladies feeling this week about what happened in the Senate and as it relates to President Biden's remarks about him possibly pushing the filibuster through? I'll start with you, Ms. Campbell.
Well, I think it's way past time, to be quite honest and frank with you. The reality is here we are in October. We've been saying this for a very long time, that it was obvious, at least I would say, speak for myself, that this particular Congress, as far as the Republican Party, just factual, is not willing to work with this administration. Right. Unfortunately. And so it has held up this administration's priorities, not just voting rights, but on a lot of things that you have a minority leader in the Senate who seems to be driving as if he's the majority. And so I was glad to hear President Biden say that, that it's time for a change in the filibuster.
LaTosha,
not just for voting rights, for his whole agenda. It's October. That's all I'm going to say.
Right. LaTosha, I want to get your thoughts on what President Biden said last night at the town hall about the filibuster.
The bottom line is we've said that there was nothing surprising of what's happening right now. The Republicans have been obstructionist the entire time that he's been in office. Matter of fact, they've gone out of their way to make sure that they're marginalizing the vote. Their voter suppression bills are actually being sponsored by Republicans. So there were no surprises around what happened in the Senate this week. I think that what has been surprising is that we have not heard this earlier, around being able to eliminate the filibuster. So I do think that there's a sign of hope, that the president is now coming to the realization that many of us always knew, that in order to move forward, to move his agenda forward, he's going to have to take a bold step. One, he's going to have voting rights, and to get his bill passed, he's going to have to be able to deal with the filibuster. You cannot maintain this racist rhetoric that has been used to stop civil rights legislation and to think that you're going to get a progressive agenda passed. It's just not going to happen.
Right. Now, you ladies were also instrumental in, the Vice President Kamala Harris being the chosen one. You advocated and he picked her as a vice president, and he made a lot of promises to Black America, from police reform to voting rights. Do you think the administration is living up to the promise? And my main question is, if he doesn't, how much do you think it's going to impact the midterms? I'll start with you, Latasha.
No, I think that he's already, I think it's the midterms are already impacted. We don't have any more time. I think every day that goes by and we don't have voting right legislation, right, that's going to protect the right to vote. We're already in the fight. In Georgia right now, they already enacted a law. The redistricting is already happening. And so I think that there's a lot of political will in the Black community that is actually being dissipated right now because people are frustrated. And so I think there's going to it's making it harder around talking about the midterm election. I think secondly, seeing the images of what we saw with the Haitian immigrants and all of those things, and then the different treatment of what we saw with Afghanistanis, I think all of those things are making it even more difficult in an environment very challenging around to see the kind of turnout for the 2022 election that we're going to need. And so I believe that part of, even with this administration, they're going to have to really recognize that the timing is now. They don't have much time, right, to really be able to drag this out, particularly if we're talking about the midterms.
Right. Ms. Campbell?
I would also say that it's not just 2022, it's impacting 2021. Living in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that race is very close. And the reality is it's in the same media market. So people are concerned, and you're seeing that, I believe, in the closeness of the race in the governor's race in the state of Virginia. So as Latasha stated, it's way past time. And his agenda will not move without some reform when it comes to that filibuster. And I think if you can get that done, then and get voting rights protections and voting rights reform passed, that will go a long way. But it's a very narrow window, and there is a lot of frustration in the community. Heck, it's a lot of frustration for those of us who are out here putting our bodies on the line and help to nonpartisanly, I did, and just make sure that Black people turned out, especially Black women. And for Black women, and people always talk about how what we are to the Democratic Party, and we're the secret sauce and all these things. But at the end of the day, what Black women voted for in 2020 was top three things, was to really focus in on dealing with systemic structural racism, to deal with this COVID-19, which is getting better, but we're not there yet, right? And also deal with police reform, criminal justice and police reform. Those were the top issues, because we had not had the attack on our voting rights until this year. But I can trust and believe any poll you look at it now is showing that voting rights are core to that. And any issue that we want to see move forward for inclusion in this country, the democracy is really under threat from within. We're seeing that, but we need to see boldness from this administration, and that people put their faith in this process, especially our young people who are saying, what was that about?
Yeah,
there's no way in the world that we're going to be able to get people to turn out next year if they don't see real progress.
Right, and what was that about? You guys brought up, you two ladies brought up some key points that I want to address. First of all, like I say, I'm so honored to have you here because you've been on the front line. I mean, I've been following it, and you're walking in the spirit of women like Dorothy Heights, Fannie Lou Haman, Mary McLeod Bethune. I want to talk to you about the civil rights era of the past, 1960s. Do you feel like, although we've made so much progress, that we're still living, it seems like today in the 1960s? Is it that bad right now? I want our soulmates to kind of get a sense of the past and how we're kind of looking at it right now in 2021. I'll start with you, Latasha.
You know, let me say this. I think we have to acknowledge that change is happening. The bottom line is when I get up and go to the store, I can actually walk through the front door. My grandmother couldn't do that. And so for us not to acknowledge that change has happened. What we also have to acknowledge, though, is the same thing that they were fighting up against and for the Jim Crow era is what we're fighting up against now, which is white male patriarchy and white supremacy. And so the thing that is a common, which is the same, is until we uproot structural racism, it will continue to change and contort itself and show up in different ways. And so it would not be honest or truthful to say that we're not in the same circumstance. We have freedom of movement that our ancestors and the people like Fannie Lou Hamer and others laid a foundation for us to be able to freely even protest in ways that we didn't have access. The question is up to us to take it to the next level. That they brought it's like a relay race. They brought it to this point. Now we've got to take to the next point so that we can move forward. Until we uproot structural racism in this country, we will continue to be dealing with these kinds of issues, which is why it's important for Black people to really look at this not as just we're participants in a democracy. We got to start thinking of ourselves as founders of a new America and really radically reimagine every single system in this country and demand that it shifted.
Okay, you're getting me fired up and ready to go. So I want to switch reels and talk about the call to action for next week. Ms. Campbell, I want to start with you. Let's talk about it. Started this week. You guys are in Washington, D.C. Talk to our soulmates about what the plan and call to action is for next week.
The call, first of all, I want to stop and say one of the people who fires me up is the sister that just spoke. We've been in this struggle, and I just love what all she does, because she does it with power and strength and love. And so I want to thank her for continuing to do what she does and just knocking down the barriers but yet finding a way to lift up folks. Because one of the things, we are not defeated. I've heard you say this sometimes. We are not defeated. I'm a little tired. It's Friday, 4 o'clock, but because it's been a long week. But no way am we deterred. We're going to fight this thing until we win. That's what our ancestors taught us. That's what the names that you mentioned and those names that you didn't mention that taught us. And we have some of the same mentors over the years. So we know we're gonna fight and we're gonna win. But we have to also instill in our young people that the fight will always continue. And when she brought up the fact that systemic racism has not been addressed in this country, that's why we're seeing all of this. Right. I know you asked me about what's happening next week. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to be on Capitol Hill next week. We partner, of course, with Black Voters Matter, National Council of Negro Women, many other organizations. We come together with something called Black Women and Allies for Voting Rights, but they're also dealing with our money. So we want to talk about voting rights, and they're over there dealing with the people hearing about the Build Back Better plan and the infrastructure plan. We have to weigh in, we have to walk and chew gum. So we're going to be on Capitol Hill because I almost felt like we started back to July, Latasha. You know, what I mean by that is, you know, you couldn't get 10 Republicans again to cross the aisle with the 50 Democrats to just even allow for discussion of voting rights, let alone, you know, vote on the bill. Right. So here we are, October the 22nd, and they've done it again. And so we got to show up. We got to elevate. So we're doing a freedom walk for voting rights on Thursday, October 28th. Starting at the National Council of Negro Women building, 633 Pennsylvania Avenue. What's important about that building is Dr. Dorothy Irene Howe bought that building about 15 years ago or so, and it sits on what's also important about where that building sits. It is one of the largest places that it was a slave trade in Washington, D.C. So it is hollow ground. We're walking from there to the Supreme Court, and we're going to have our speak out, and we're also going to elevate our activism that day. We have to keep pushing and tell the Senate we are not going back. Right. We're going to keep forward, as our sister in Alabama, Sheila Tyson, said the other day. We're not going back. You're not pushing us backwards. We have to keep fighting until we win.
Okay,
So
we have about 30 seconds left. I just want you to let our soulmates know I can't be there in Washington, D.C., although I would love to be. So what is our call to action, those of us that are in our neighborhoods, in our communities? What do we need to do next week to say that we want our voting rights? Latasha?
You can, go ahead.
Go on, Mel. Go on, Mel.
Okay, the only thing I was going to say, on Tuesday the 26th, we are having a national call-in day. So they can call their U.S. senators. I'm going to give you a phone number, 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. We want from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. They need to hear from us and tell them that you demand that they pass voting rights reform now. The John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. Get it done and get it done now. So that's another way that people who can't be in Washington, D.C. Get involved.
Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. We are out of time, but we will continue this conversation next week because it's important to Black America. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great interview, Niel. So the January 6th committee's vote to refer former Trump strategist Steve Bannon for criminal charges is putting a spotlight on the central role that he may have played in organizing the day and the extent to which he coordinated with the White House and former President Donald Trump. As lawmakers on the House committee voted unanimously Tuesday to forward Bannon to the Justice Department for failure to comply with their subpoena, a repeated refrain was the importance there was a very strong importance that he could play within connecting the day's events as well as the participants surrounding around the insurrection. Now, based on the committee's investigation, it appears that Mr. Bannon had substantial advanced knowledge of the plans for January 6th and likely had an important role in formulating those plans. Representative Liz Cheney, the Payne's vice chair, said at the committee meeting. So I think that Steve Bannon, we talked about Steve Bannon, I believe, last week or maybe even the week before. The spotlight is definitely on him, as it should be. I mean, this isn't the first time that he's done something dishonorable. We can go back to the We Build the Wall campaign, where it was a crowdfunding campaign. I'm not sure if we talked about it here. It was $25 million that him and other participants, they got together and they were supposed to, it was under the auspice to build a U.S.-Mexico border wall with private funds. They only spent half of it. Nobody knows where the rest of that money went to, and it's still a mystery. So I think that this is going to be the catapult. Looking into this is definitely going to start opening up some of the other secrets that he might have.
And I think as they tighten up on him, if they get to the point where they get to speak with him and, and things start moving forward, what is he going to say about former President Donald Trump? What is he going to say? I know what Representative Adam Schiff had to say about what happened on that day, and the words are pretty powerful. It said, we were here, we heard the doors breaking, the glass shattering, the cries from outside the chamber, and we saw the bloody results, the officers injured, and those who died. At the end of the day, we all saw what happened on January the 6th, and my opinion, and I'm sure most would agree with me, that Trump knew what was going on that day, and he was looking forward to encouraging for that to happen, and I'm going to stand by that.
I don't know if you all saw in The View the other day, Condoleezza Rice was there, and she was talking about Colin Powell. She talked about a couple other things. She touched on critical race theory in schools. She also was asked about January 6th, and she essentially said, I think we should move on from that. The country should move on. There are so many other issues. And Sunny, of course, pushed back a little bit like, whoa. We can't move on until we figure out what happened. And she kind of said something along the lines of, right, we will and we should. But for the most part, we should move on. And I feel like that is the sentiment of a lot of Republicans, right? We should just move on. Let's move on. We don't want this, Mitch McConnell is like, I don't want to go into 2022 talking about this. I don't want this to be a part of the elections. I don't want to be this to be a part of it. Let's move on. And it's interesting. Do you think that this is something that, are we in the process of moving on? Who do you think's getting their way, though, in actual action?
Well, I think, no, Brooke, I'm so glad you brought that up, because we're going to be a whole year in a couple of months. And so we don't have to have this go into 2022 if action would have been taken. If we would have been able to get all the people that stormed the Capitol that day, if they were arrested, there's more that needs to be done with taking those people down, and it hasn't been done yet. So if they would the justice system would do what they need to do, find those people, find them accountable, we wouldn't take this into 2022.
I want to spend a little time, just a few minutes, talking about Steve Bannon and why the committee is going after him. him. Let's not forget that Steve Bannon helped build Donald Trump's base. He worked for Bart Bright publication, which was the base of what started this surge of what we call now Trumpsters, right? He was the organizer of this group of people. So that's why he's so critical to this panel and this committee, is because all of those people that came there, they were mobilized and organized by Steve Bannon, Stephen Miller, who was also a top advisor for Donald Trump. So this is really important to this committee, because once it traces back to Steve Bannon, there's going to be a paper trail, there's going to be emails, there's going to be text messages that are going to tie Donald Trump and possibly his family to this. So this is very important that they investigate and get to the bottom of him, because he's the organizer of the Trumpsters.
We'll definitely keep you posted on that. Well, booster shots in America just became a lot more accessible. On Thursday, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention approved booster shots for all adults who got Johnson & Johnson one-shot COVID vaccine, and a select group of fully vaccinated Moderna recipients. The agency also approved a mix and match approach, giving booster eligible people the option to get a new dose of any approved vaccine regardless of the one they initially received.